Hey gang, Chonky here. I'm finally delivering that tier 3 video for the weapons and armor sets that you can get in Ragewind Castle. Sorry I'm a few weeks late. It has been a crazy holiday season, but that's all behind us now. So let's get into the sets. So one thing I would like to preface this with is that with the tier 3 sets, they are designed so that you can wear all pieces of all three of them no matter what. So what I mean by that is with the tier 3 armor set, you have the 8 pieces of your armor. You have the helmet, the pauldrons, the bracers, the gloves, the belt, the pants, the boots, and the chest piece. And with the two-handed weapon sets, you have your two-handed weapon with the champion. It is a claymore. And then you have boots. And then you also have a amulet. Or, sorry, a signet. Trinket. This thing. Oh, it's a ring. My bad. And you're going to find that the other two-handed sets follow that same suit. You're going to have boots, the two-handed weapon, and then some form of jewelry. And with the one-handed set, it is a wand, or not a wand. It's a one-handed weapon, an offhand weapon, and then gloves. And if you look, I think I have, yeah, so if you see, these are Bloodgorger gloves, so these are technically for my armor set, but I'm also wearing Avenger's grips, which are for the weapon set. So they look the same, but they are different sets. Try not to get confused when you're putting them on, because, you know, if you want all your weapon sets, you're going to want to make sure that you have the right piece of armor on. But I do like that they made it all look like the same suit, because the armor itself looks pretty cool. I haven't colored this or anything. And the new champion set looks pretty sweet. Now, let's go into the skills. So with the Bloodgorger set, your first bonus is that ability critical strikes will cause you to enter a blood frenzy for 10 seconds. And blood frenzy increases all your damage done by 2% per stack of blood frenzy. Each time you gain a stack of blood frenzy, you will also refresh your unstoppable buff, which is the one where you get increased attack speed and ignore CC. Blood Frenzy is consumed to heal 10% of your health per stack when you drop below 20% HP. So it's like an automatic trigger. If you start to drop in health and then you have a lot of Blood Frenzy, you will heal 10% per stack. Shield Throw, Cleave, and Brutal Strike deal 25% additional damage per stack of Blood Frenzy. And the last bonus is that each stack of Blood Frenzy increases your critical strike chance by 3%, and then all damage done by an additional 8%. So what that means is that you get, if you only have the second bonus, you just get 2% damage increase per stack. But if you have all 6 bonuses, you get a 10% damage increase per stack, as well as 3% increased critical strike chance, which the more Blood Frenzy you get, the more you can crit, which means the more Blood Frenzy you can get, which means the more damage you do, and the more you can crit, and, you know, so on and so forth. It's a pretty powerful set. Now, myself, I haven't had the time to farm up for champion and get to use this yet, but just looking at the skills makes it really promising for me. Now, the one-handed weapon set for the champion is called Avenger's Fury. You can see it right here, my one-handed sword and shield, as well as the gloves that I'm wearing. And the bonuses for the Avenger's Fury set starts out with, it increases the damage of Shield Bash, Cold the Weak, and Brutal Strike by 80%. Each time you use these abilities, you gain Avenger's Fury, which will increase the damage of your next upheaval by 80%, and this stacks up to 10 times. So, since it's stackable, if you repeatedly use Shield Bash, Cold the Weak, and Brutal Strike, you will eventually get up to 800% increased damage on your next upheaval. While Skin of Stone is active, Shield Bash causes the earth to erupt from each target hit, damaging nearby enemies for 300% additional damage. Blocking an attack will also increase your melee power by 15% for 5 seconds, and gives your next upheaval 100% increased critical strike chance, so it will crit without fail. So what's cool with that is that if you know you have 10 stacks of Avenger's Fury, you can block an attack with your shield, since you will obviously have your shield out, And then not only will your upheaval have 800% increased damage, it will also guarantee a crit. Now, the only way to make that better is if you could guarantee a penetration as well. But I mean, 100% crit chance on an 800% increased upheaval sounds like crazy damage. And I mean, from what I've heard in the Discord, people were doing upwards of like 1 million a hit. It's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. So the bonuses for Pride of the Flamebound is that the first one, Mighty Blow, Brutal Strike, and Cleave will deal an additional 80% fire damage. And then the third bonus is that Charge will create a pool of flames for 6 seconds, dealing 180% fire damage to nearby enemies each second. And while standing in your pool of flames, Mighty Blow, Cleave, and Brutal Strike will ignite the target, dealing 50% fire damage each second for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So you charge into a fight, stay in your fire, which empowers your abilities, and then you will deal increased damage. Now what's cool with this set is that this introduces a new element to the champion's arsenal, because before champion was all physical no matter what, but now they deal fire damage as well. So if you have extra heroism points and you are high level and focusing on the Flamebound set, it wouldn't hurt to also increase your fire damage through heroism. Now, I'm not wearing very good gear. This was just given to me. It's common gear, so I don't have any magnificent stats. As you can see, my character has only 4.7k health. But you can see if I'm using the Avenger set, when I use Shield Bash, Shield Throw, Brutal Strike, you can see that stack that I'm getting, where it shows upheaval. And you'll see the numbers going up over there. So I've got 8 stacks right now. And it looks like the stacks don't go away. And then if I use upheaval... Oh, that was Skin of Stone. If I use upheaval, you will consume all the stacks and do a fat amount of damage, which I'm not because my gear's weak. My moves are weak. And then if you were to block an attack, if this dummy could attack me, I could, turn around and get 100% crit on it. So, really cool. I really like seeing these changes made to upheaval. Now, with the two-handed set, you can see that when I charged in, it left a little pool of flame on the ground. So it's not that you leave a trail of fire, it's that you leave fire at the target, and then you can sort of, wail on them from there. I do like the idea that it gives Cleave a little bit more use. I was never a big fan of Cleave, but I might be more inclined to use it more, since Mighty Blow, Cleave, and Brutal Strike will deal a lot of fire damage on top of the damage they will already do. So once I'm ready to craft Tier 3 armor, I might have to focus Cleave and Mighty Blow, as well as Brutal Strike. I, personally, when I'm building my sets, it's going to be weird for me to focus both of them. But I do want to try and focus both the one-handed and two-handed sets, because with champions, I do like to swap mid-combo, between one-handed and two-handed. But I have seen other champions just use only the Flamebound set, and so what they'll do is they'll just have a single claymore, or a single greatsword, and just run through a 10 million HP dummy in like 19 seconds, I think is what I saw. So you can get a lot of crazy damage out of this. Just not with what I have, because I have common gear. But yeah, so the champion stuff looks really good. Really, really, really good. Let's take a look at the Cleric. Now, with the Cleric set, you have the armor, which is the Martyr set. You have the two-handed set, which is the Inquisition set. And the one-handed set, which is the Prophet set. Hammer and shield. Pretty cool. And the bonuses for the Martyr set, starting with the first one, is that Justice Strike and Holy Light will burn their targets for an additional 120% holy damage over 3 seconds. Third bonus, Divine Sacrifice explodes instantly, and the explosion will deal 50% more damage. And then fourth, while Arbiter's Fury is active, Divine Sacrifice costs 15% more HP to cast, and has no cooldown. Each time Divine Sacrifice deals damage to up to 3 enemies, you become empowered by the light, increasing your holy damage done by 35% for 8 seconds, and reducing the cooldown of Avatar by 1 second. And then while empowered, your healing is increased by 20%, and each time you are healed or heal others, the cooldown of Justice Strike and Holy Light is reduced by 1 second. So there's a lot to unpack there. So firstly, Divine Sacrifice explodes instantly and deals more damage overall. Pretty nifty. You know, it was already part of my main rotation of abilities, and now it just goes off instantly, which is nice, because before you had to wait like 2-3 seconds, something like that, for it to go off. Justice Strike and Holy Light dealing burn damage is pretty nice. You know, they get to take a little extra damage over time, which is cool, because again, Holy Light is part of my main rotation of skills, and Justice Strike, while I was hating on it before, now actually serves a purpose, and I will get into that. While Arbiter's Fury is active, Divine Sacrifice costs 15% additional health per cast and has no cooldown. So, on paper, you would think, okay, well, I can just spam it over and over and over again. Not necessarily. You can only spam it like 3 times, because you still have the casting animation of putting your fist down to do Divine Sacrifice. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'll use Arbiter's Fury, and then I'm just going to use Divine Sacrifice as much as I can. So I got 3 of them off, because, you know, Arbiter's Fury only sticks around for, 3 pulses? And so in that time, you can get off 3 Divine Sacrifice before it goes on to cooldown. But be careful when doing this, because as you saw, you know, it cost me almost 50% of my health. Actually, it cost me more than 50% of my health. So it's a little risky. You know, if you're using it in a fight, if you know you're going to be safe, or you could pop regen or something like that, or if you have a rejuve potion going, yeah, sure, throw as many Divine Sacrifice as you can. But that's a really good way to rack up some damage pretty quick. And then each time Divine Sacrifice hurts up to 3 enemies. So you're going to see that little... I don't know exactly what to call it, but it's that symbol that pops up next to my Exorcism emblem. So, like, there's my weapon buff, the Exorcism symbol, and then that one right there, that symbol is you being empowered, which will increase all your holy damage by 35%. And it reduces the cooldown of Avatar by 1 second. I don't really see the cooldown reduction being super useful. A lot of times when you're in a boss fight, you're only hitting 1 enemy, maybe 2. Not every boss will summon adds. So anyway, each time you heal or are healed by others, like if you're using the channel heal, you will reduce the cooldown of Justice Strike and Holy Light by 1 second. Which, I mean, 1 second doesn't sound like a whole lot, but the cooldown, as you can see on my Holy Light, is already pretty low. It's only like a 5-second cooldown or something like that. So if I could get it even faster, Holy Light's one of my most dangerous skills as a Cleric, so it would be nice to get it back quickly. Now, the Inquisition set, which is the 2-handed set for the Clerics, this involves the 2-handed hammer, it involves boots, and then it involves a necklace. A necklace. So the Champions was a ring, the Clerics is a necklace. And the abilities for this one, it's similar to the Pious set, but way better. This set does what the Pious set could not, which is make me a believer. So the first ability of the Inquisition set is that Smite is now a melee ability. Looks like this. We know this. Your melee power is increased by 125% of your spell power, which is way more because the Pious set only gave you 75% conversion. And then lastly, Justice Strike will deal 40% more physical and holy damage, and has a 25% chance to reset the cooldown of Heavenly Strike. Justice Strike will also increase your attack speed by 40% for 4 seconds, and it empowers your next Exorcism, causing it to strike the target 2 additional times. So, what does this mean? Well, this means that you need to be spamming Justice Strike as much as possible. This move, they increased the range on it, so now you can actually hit from a respectable distance. Before, you literally had to be like right on the target, and it was really hard to use against bosses. But now, this range, it's much more feasible. Using it, you deal more physical and holy damage if you just have the set, which is nice. And it has a 25% chance to reset the cooldown of Heavenly Strike, which is this move right here. Another important move in your skill rotation. And it also increases your attack speed by 40%. So normally you swing like this and it's very slow. You know, I'm doing anywhere from like 40 to like 60k damage a hit. And I think that's without crits and stuff like that. And then if you use Justice Strike, you get a 40% attack speed buff for 4 seconds. So it actually looks like this, which is actually way more respectable. Because before, with the ranged smite, you could fire it off super quick from pretty far away and deal okay damage. I mean, clerics are still pretty low on the DPS meter compared to everybody else. But the fact that you can, you know, boost yourself up a little bit makes it way more effective. You know, it's actually really helpful in combat to build up those flurry stacks and to just, you know, throw a couple swings in there, throw a couple moves, use Justice Strike again. And I think they are going to, or at least I hope they touch base on Justice Strike, because it says it's supposed to heal for, 2% of the damage done. And I'll hit people for like, you know, 100k damage, and I won't heal 2k health. I'll only heal like 180, which is really low. So the healing, I think, is currently a little borked, a little messed up on Justice Strike. But that's the only thing that's bad about it now. Everything else is pretty nice. And then the other thing, the last part of the set, is that if you use Justice Strike, it will empower your next exorcism. So when you hit somebody, you now hit them 3 times. Now, exorcism is a big hit or miss spell, at least in my opinion. Sometimes it'll do a bunch of damage. Sometimes it'll do the same as everything else. But the fact that you can empower it to strike 3 times, you know, that's like, that's a chance to deal a lot of damage. I was watching in Ragewind when I put my set together and was running some of the bosses. I would see Exorcism hit for like 150,000 damage on the first one, 80,000 damage on the second one, which is okay, and then like 200,000 damage on the next one. It was pretty crazy to see some of the damage you can get from Exorcism. And keep in mind, you know, I can still throw down Arbiter's Fury, some Holy Lights, get that in there, get the Exorcism going. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, I just did 1 million damage in like 3 seconds. So you can throw it all together and it comes together really well. But we're not done yet. We still got to talk about the Prophet set. So the Prophet set looks like this. Pretty sweet little shield. Pretty cool little hammer. And this one is definitely geared more towards Arbiter's Fury instead of Justice Strike. But the bonuses for this one are that it increases your healing of regen by 5%. And regen will also heal a nearby ally, which is pretty cool. And that, if you're using this set and the Martyr set, when regen heals another ally, if you're empowered, you're going to heal them for more, as well as reduce the cooldowns on your abilities. Or at least Holy Light and, what was it? Justice Strike? Yeah, Holy Light and Justice Strike. And then the big one for the Prophet set is that Arbiter's Fury is cast a second time at 50% effectiveness. And then regen increases the damage of your next Arbiter's Fury by 175% and reduces the cooldown by 5 seconds. And if regen heals an ally, the effect is doubled. So, that's a lot of words. So the way it works is, if you use Arbiter's Fury, you throw a second one, right? So you get 2 Arbiter's Fury for the price of 1, albeit the second one is a little weaker. And then if you use regen by itself, you will do 175% more damage on your next Arbiter's Fury. And if your regen heals somebody, which regen will automatically heal a nearby ally if you have one, you will get 350% more damage on Arbiter's Fury. At least that's what I'm interpreting when I read it. But for those of you guys who were running Ragewind Castle and weren't playing a cleric but had a cleric in the party, this will probably make sense to you now why you would just see them throwing a whole bunch of Arbiter's Furies. I could see that they were able to spam cast it. I'm not exactly sure what they were doing, if they were building a whole bunch of cooldown reduction, or if there was just a bug that I just wasn't aware of. But yeah, people were able to spam cast Arbiter's Fury a whole lot. And it was pretty crazy, because that was just a lot of damage spread out everywhere. It was probably frying all the poor Xboxes and PlayStations. But yeah, really cool set. I think that it's still overall weaker than using the Inquisition set, just because overall, like if you... Here, let me use both my potions and I'll show you what I mean. But in the end, I think that even though this is a cool set, I think if you want something that's stronger, you're going to want to go with the Inquisition set. It is nice having the healing bonuses for the Prophet set. So maybe if you want to switch between one-handed and two-handed to heal people, that would be nice. But if you just want raw damage, I think going with the second, or the two-handed set would be ideal. Because, I mean, if you look at my stats, I have 12,500 spell power and 30k melee power. Now, the reason why I have so much is because I have 125% conversion from my weapon specialization, and then I'm using both the melee power potion and the spell power potion. So having both of those gives me just a tremendous amount of power. And, you know, just using one Arbiter's Fury right there, it's doing more damage than the double Arbiter's Fury from the one-handed set. So, that's just my opinion. I really like the way the Inquisition set feels. I think it's really strong. And the fact that Justice Strike comes back so quickly allows you to keep your attack speed up and stay in the fight. Great set, great set. Alright, so let's move on to the Ranger. Now, getting into the Ranger. So the Ranger's three sets are the Karra's set, which is the two-handed set, the Skulker's set, which is the one-handed set, and the Siegemaster set, which is for your armor. So the Siegemaster set, right away, it looks the exact same as the Crypt Stalkers, or what do I have? The Dread Ranger set. So that was a little disappointing that there wasn't a new design for it. Maybe they'll update it eventually. I don't know. So it is a shame that it doesn't look different, but it does have some cool abilities. So going into the bonuses, starting out, it increases the damage of Deadly Shot by 45%, and it no longer requires precision aiming. As before, Deadly Shot would zoom in and then fire, so now it does more damage, and it doesn't zoom in. You might like it, you might not. Deadly Shot critical strikes increase the damage of Blasting Shot by 50%, and it stacks up to 4 times. So Blasting Shot is where you put the mines on the ground, so you can Deadly Shot a few times and buff up your mines, and then put them down, and they'll do upwards of 200% increased damage. And then it increases the number of mines from Blasting Shot by 1, and increases their trigger and explosion radius by 50%. So now enemies don't have to get nearly as close to be hit by it, and you get more of them. And then after 6 seconds, any unexploded mines from Blasting Shot will self-destruct for 40% additional damage and 200% larger radius. So if nobody touches it, it's going to just go off on its own, which could be more beneficial because it does more damage and covers more area. And then the last bonus is that it increases the damage of Deadly Shot by 30% for each Blasting Shot mine deployed. Each time a Blasting Shot mine explodes, the cooldown of Deadly Shot is reduced by 2 seconds. So that bonus kind of plays against itself, you know, because it increases the damage of Deadly Shot by 30% for each blasting mine deployed, which you can have, 4? So right there you would have 100% and 120% increased damage if... Woo, did you see that? I blew up the barrels over here when they were back here. Nice. But now Blasting Shot, or Deadly Shot, doesn't zoom in anymore, as before it would. Now it doesn't. But if you have a whole bunch of mines, your Deadly Shot will do more damage. But if somebody triggers it, it reduces the cooldown by 2 seconds for each mine. So if all of them get triggered, you'll get 8 seconds off of your Deadly Shot cooldown, which for me is the whole thing. So if everybody triggers your mines, you get it back no matter what. Pretty interesting stuff. I think what I would probably do is I would probably put Blasting Shot mines near, like if I'm fighting a boss, I would put it near the boss. so I could get the bonus from Deadly Shot. Or, sorry, get the bonus for Deadly Shot. And then I would know in the back of my mind that even if the boss doesn't step on those mines, there's a good chance it'll get hit when they self-detonate for even more damage. Because you saw it reached from like here all the way over here. So I would probably put the mines close to the boss so that they would detonate on their own, but I would still get the bonus to Deadly Shot because this is one of the strongest moves that the Ranger has if you're not focusing nature damage. Now let's get into the sets. So you have the one-handed set, which is the Skulker set. It's a dual-wield set, so you have 2 one-handed crossbows. Pretty cool. Paralyzing Shot bypasses armor and resistance and pulls in up to 3 enemies to the target. Paralyzing Shot is this move right here. It will pull enemies in, and it also reduces their resistances and armor. It increases and then the third bonus is that it increases your ranged attack power by 15%, increases the critical strike chance of Deadly Shot by 30%, and then Deadly Shot will increase your attack speed by 25% for 4 seconds, and will also ricochet to 3 nearby enemies, dealing 25% less damage each time. So, what does that mean? So now if you use Deadly Shot, you can auto attack, and your moves should be able to ricochet. Here, let's try it over here. Oh, it's Deadly Shot that ricochets. Oh yeah, I read that wrong. My bad. So yeah, as you can see, it bounces over to the other guy. Now, this is just like my champion gear. It's just common stuff that was given to me so that I could show you guys. But that's pretty cool. Deadly Shot now is, more than just a single target spell. It does ricochet, doing less damage overall. But I think the best part of the Skulker set is that it increases your ranged attack power by 15%. Now, the reason why that is huge is the class bonus, the weapon specialization for dual wielding for the Ranger, does not give you increased damage. Normally, it's, the two-handed bows or crossbows or the one-handed shield and crossbow. Those would increase your ranged power. But the perk of dual wielding is you get faster attack speed and better crit stuff. So now with the Skulker set, you do get that range power increase, which makes it even more powerful. So I thought that was a really nice change. And then it also increases your crit chance of Deadly Shot by 30%, which is also a signature move. So if it crits, it will shoot a second one right after. So I think really strong set. I was actually, when I was playing around with one of the devs, they were using the Siegemaster and Skulker set, and he was killing everything. So for the two-handed set, you have Karra's set, or Karra's strategy. And with this one, Salvo would deal an additional 140% nature damage per second for 3 seconds, but no longer knocks back. So before, when you would use Salvo, you'd sort of just push a whole room of enemies away. Oh, hey, Karra. And so what I would do is use Salvo and then put down the poison, poison arrow, blight arrow, the one that does the AoE, this one. And so I would push them away into it, or push them away and have them walk into it, which they would normally be slowed. So it was a good combo. But now it just does like a persisting poison damage. It does nature damage every second. It just won't knock them back now. Honestly, I think that's a good change. I think that, that's pretty decent because now you're just dealing more damage overall. And against something like a boss, which you can't knock back anyway, now Salvo has a better reason to be used. It's just more damage. And then the third bonus for Karra's set is that it increases the damage of Salvo by 100% and reduces its cooldown by 4 seconds. And, as you saw, when Salvo is used, Ranger Karra will appear and use Salvo as well. So, pretty much this set just focuses the Salvo ability. So, with this and Siegemaster, you're only really getting buffs to Deadly Shot, Blasting Shot, and Salvo, which I think is an interesting choice, but with seeing the amount of damage that you get out of Salvo now and how quickly it comes back, with the set, what is my official cooldown? 8 seconds. That's not very bad. So I think that it definitely makes Salvo a lot stronger, and I don't know the damage scaling from Karra, But the fact that she also comes in and fires an ability, which I believe is the same as yours in the sense of it will deal poison damage or, nature damage over time. Because she doesn't appear to knock them back or anything. So, yeah, I think that's pretty sweet. I think that overall, the one-handed set, the Skulker set, might be better in terms of overall damage, but I haven't tested the numbers yet, so any Rangers, if you guys have tried both sets, let me know in the comments which one you think is better, because on paper, I would think a Skulker would go better with Siegemaster, but the Karra strategy set seems really good too. Now let's check out the Rogue. Alright, so the Rogue set is called the Terror set. And I think the design, first off, is pretty interesting. It seems very brutish, like very strong. Not like saying that the rogues aren't strong; they're incredibly strong, actually. But just like the bull helmet and the bull, boots and the bull belt, I think it looks pretty funny. Not in a bad way. Just interesting armor set for a rogue. But they have two one-handed sets. So there's the Oblivion set, which I'm currently holding, and the Inubai set, which I'm currently holding. So it's 2 knives or 2 axes. And then the Oblivion set has boots, and the Inubai set has a necklace. I might have mixed that up. But regardless, they're both dual-wield sets. There's no two-handed weapons for the rogue. So you pretty much get to pick what you want to use or focus on, because they both have pretty interesting abilities. So starting with the Terror armor, you have that Stalker increases your spell penetration by 15%. So that's huge, because Stalker is something you want to have up all the time. It already increases your damage by 30%. You activate Stalker by going into stealth, or rather breaking out of stealth, using Phased Carnage or Shadow Cloak. Those 3 moves will activate Stalker. So that overall would increase damage by 30. And now you're increasing your spell pen by 15%, which benefits all of your void damaging abilities. Then Faceport deals an additional 60% void damage. Boom, great. Next bonus increases the damage of Backstab by 30%, and Backstab no longer requires you to be behind the target. So now you can backstab them in the front. And I think that that's a great change. One of the reasons why I always kind of steered away from backstab is you had a lot of enemies in the game that would immediately 180 and face you, making backstab impossible. And some bosses would do it too, so even if you faceport behind them, they're already corrected to look at you and you can't backstab. Well, now that doesn't matter. So now you can just, break stealth with a backstab to the front, do your abilities, and then just keep attacking them. Bonus 5, Backstab always deals full damage as if stealthed, and Backstab increases the damage of your next ambush by 20%. So, if you're stealthed, I can't remember the exact amount. So essentially, you would always do, like for me, I'm not wearing armor that benefits Backstab, but just with this alone, I would always be dealing 530% physical damage. Doesn't have to be behind them. It doesn't have to be from stealth. I can just stab them for a whole bunch of damage every few seconds. Fantastic buff. And then it also, if you use Backstab, it will increase the damage of your next ambush by 200%, which, if you also consume Stalker with Ambush, is an extra 300% damage. So overall, it would be like 710% damage if we're just going off of my ability. So the last bonus, for 6 seconds after you use the move Ambush, your Eviscerate and Phased Carnage will apply a Void Rupture, which deals 40% void damage per second for 6 seconds, and Void Rupture can stack up to 4 times. So by itself, a single Void Rupture wouldn't do a whole lot, but if you have all 4 of them, that's 140% void or 160% void damage every second for 6 seconds. So that's great. I mean, personally, I never really saw a reason to use a lot of Ambush before when they first added it. But now with the Terror set, I'm definitely way more incentivized to use Ambush, because for me, Eviscerate and Phased Carnage were a big part of my skill rotation. I mean, Eviscerate is your main auto attack, but Phased Carnage was the move that I focused a lot anyway. So between Phased Carnage and Eviscerate, being able to constantly apply a Void Rupture after you use Ambush is really, really cool. Really, really increases the void damage to go along with the physical damage of Rogue. And it's one of the reasons why Rogue is one of the strongest classes in the game. It's so powerful. So looking at the Oblivion set, which are the 2 axes that I have, the effects are that Phased Carnage is used a second time at 50% effectiveness, kind of like how Arbiter's Fury is with the Cleric. And then Ambush will deal an additional 50% of its damage as void damage over 10 seconds, and Assassinate does not trigger a cooldown for 3 seconds after using Phased Carnage. So essentially you can use Phased Carnage and then Assassinate a couple times. It's the same instance of using Divine Sacrifice with Avatar active. You can't just like spam the ability, but if you're right on top of them, you can leap stab, leap stab, leap stab. So you could probably get 2 or 3 Assassinates for the price of 1 after you use Phased Carnage. So overall, I think that's a really good set to have. When I build my tier 3 stuff for my Rogue, I will probably focus the Oblivion set over the Inubai set, just because my 2 favorite moves to use with the Rogue are Phased Carnage and Assassinate. So I really like this set. And then lastly, the Inubai set. It increases the effectiveness of Stalker by 50%, but reduces its duration by 50%. So I believe the default duration of Stalker is 30 seconds. Yeah, let's find out. Oh, it's only 5 seconds. Okay. So, you get Stalker for a lot less time. 2.5 seconds it would be, I'm assuming. Right? I also don't have the full set, so there's no real way for us to... Actually, here, let's... Yeah, so using the Inubai set, you'd only have Stalker for about 2.5 seconds, but its effect is increased by 50%, so instead of 30%, you have 80% increased damage, which, honestly, I think is a good trade. It's really easy to keep Stalker activated. And the last bonus for Inubai is that when Ambush consumes Stalker, your next backstab will also gain 100% critical strike damage, not chance, damage. And also, overall, it increases the damage of Phaseport, Backstab, and Ambush by 80%. So the Inubai set, I think, overall gives you more damage to more things. Not to mention you get the huge buff to Stalker with an extra 50% damage on top of the 30% that it gives you. Also will increase the damage to Phaseport, Ambush, and then not that it needed it, but Backstab gets another 80% increased damage. So you have all of those buffs going to Backstab, which makes it, in my opinion, the most important move in the Rogue's arsenal to buff if you're going with armor skills. Because if you focus Backstab and you're wearing Inubai and Terror set, you will do... I think the Rogues are right now top DPS in the game. I think it's Champion and Rogues are doing the most damage. Don't quote me. I haven't looked in the numbers in like a week or two. But full tier 3 Rogues, incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. Really good sets. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at the Wizard. Alright, so the Wizard sets, pretty cool. So you have the Supreme Magister armor set. You have the Chaos two-handed set. And the Flame Weaver one-handed set with the wand and the orb. Now, I'm a little biased. I really like the two-handed set compared to the one-handed set, but I'm gonna show you everything that they do anyway, because they're cool sets regardless. But first, we're gonna get into the armor. So the Supreme Magister set, the first bonus is it doubles the bonus damage of Conduit by 15%. So Conduit, if you guys don't play Wizards or if you forgot. So Conduit means that whenever you deal fire damage, you would deal increased void damage for 4 seconds. And if you deal void damage, you do increased fire damage for 4 seconds. So the Supreme Magister set is supposed to essentially double that bonus. There might be a bug right now because it still just says 15%. It should say 30. Anyway, that being said, great, you know, adds bonus damage of Conduit by 15%. The second bonus of the Supreme Magister set is that Fire Armor will also deal 15% void damage per second and increases armor by additional 10. So now it makes you a little bit tankier, but what's amazing is with Fire Armor active, you will constantly proc both attributes of Conduit all the time. So with Fire Armor active, you are just constantly ticking away void and fire damage. So now no matter what spell you use next, it's gonna do increased damage regardless. So fantastic bonus. Conduit has a 10% chance to overload, which increases your critical strike chance by 100% for 2 seconds. So what that means is whenever you deal a tick of fire damage or void damage, there's a 10% chance that you will overload yourself, and it actually looks like the Conduit ability, but it's a little slightly colored. I think it's like purple or blue. I don't know. I'm colorblind, so it's kind of hard for me to tell. Let's see if I can... Whoops, wrong button. Okay, so right there. That right there. The thing that pops up next to the Void Orb and the Fire Orb, that's me overloading for 2 seconds. So when that happens, I get a 100% crit chance for 2 seconds, which is great. Because when you throw everything together and you overload, it's amazing. We're going to get more into that in a second. So Fire Armor flares up when it's overloaded, increasing its damage by 200% and its radius by 400%. Now, if you wear the Fire Armor or the Fire Lord set, you increase the radius of Fire Armor by 400%, and this will increase it by that much, 400%. If you put 2 Fire Lord set with your Supreme Magister set, you could get 800% increased range. I don't do that, but you can do it, and it's crazy how far out it'll reach. But the reason why this overload is really good is if you're in a big mob of enemies, your Fire Armor or something triggers you to overload. Now your Fire Armor is hitting more people, which gives you more chances to overload. So now your Fire Armor is dealing 200% increased damage with 400% increased range, and you're also critically striking for every single tick of damage for 2 seconds every time you overload. And then lastly, Vortex will strike a random enemy it hits with Meteor every 2 seconds, dealing 200% fire damage. Now, it says a random enemy, but I think it's just the enemy it's targeting. So what that means is I noticed that it'll only go off if you're attacking. So like if I cast Vortex by itself, it doesn't pop up. Like Meteor does not come down. But if you're in the process of like attacking or casting other spells, like I'll just use regular Fireball, then Meteors will come down and do increased damage. So here I'll throw my Vortex out, and then as I'm attacking, you'll see Meteors start raining down and dealing more damage. So when you're overloaded, all of that's critical hits, all of that's just crazy damage. I mean, it's really freaking strong. Now, combined with the Chaos set, which I'm going to go over last, you can get such crazy potential DPS. You have to overload, but if you overload, your damage goes through the roof. So going over the Flameweaver set, the first bonus is that it increases the damage of Emberlance by 40%. Emberlance is this move, and it increases the range by 600%. Now, if you're just standing there, it won't go at people, but if I attack this guy, or, like, aggro him, you'll see how far away my Emberlances shoot. Now, it doesn't constantly refresh itself like it does if you have Fire Armor, but that's okay. It's relatively low cooldown, and you can just see how far away this thing is zipping over to that guy. Like, crazy range, and they do more damage. And then the other bonus is that Flame Blast, which is that move, Flame Blast will inflict Flame Weave on hit, which deals 50% of fire damage every second for 6 seconds, so they burn every time you hit them with Flame Blast. But while enemies are impacted with Flame Weave, Emberlance will deal an additional 200%. So the Flame Weaver set only really focuses Emberlance and Flame Blast, which I know are really popular with some of you guys. They're not my most used moves. I will generally make sure I have Ember Lance up all the time, but I'm not really firing a lot of Flame Blast at people. It is a strong move, especially now that it summons a Meteor. So if you really like the one-handed sets for the Wizard, fantastic. I think this is the best one-handed set. Well, actually, now that I've said that, I think Ashen Magi might still be a little stronger, just because the whole I'm going to cast Sleep and get 60% and boost all fire damage by 60% for 3 seconds. That's really strong if you can, immediately apply like Cone of Fire or a lot of fire damage for a few seconds. But as like a passive damage thing, this is really strong. Throw a Flame Weave out there, and then boom, your Ember Lances are hitting from super far away for more damage, because with, let's see, Ember Lance, so they do 268 damage, and I think that's with my Flame Weave buff, but then they would do an additional 200%, so 468% damage if someone was hit by Flame Blast. So overall, it makes Ember Lance really strong. I like the set, but I like the two-handed set a lot more. So let's talk about it. So the Chaos set, it increases your void damage overall by 15%. So, pretty decent. No crazy changes. But then the third bonus is the craziest. So Chaos Orb lingers for 3 seconds and strikes all enemies in range, dealing 50% void damage. And then Ember Eruption will spawn 2 extra clones that deal void damage as well to your enemies, because before Ember Eruption, you summon your clone, and it's supposed to erupt, dealing a whole bunch of fire damage, which the damage is a little bugged right now. It doesn't do as much damage as it should, but now it will also spawn void clones that will do some extra damage as well. I'll show you guys what that looks like. So with the Chaos Orb, if you shoot it, now it sits there and persists and actually causes really good damage. And Ember Eruption will summon 3 guys. So now they gang up on people. But yeah, the damage is a little busted. It's supposed to do more damage overall, and it also draws aggro from you. So these changes are crazy, because if you pop here, let's pop some buffs real quick. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to see here. Is he full health? Okay, he'll be full health in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up with Chaos Orb, Vortex, run up, and I'm going to Magic Missile, Cone of Fire, all that stuff. But then when my abilities run out, I want to see how much damage I've done overall. So you're going to see me overload and then everything come together. So by the time that Vortex ended, I did just over 4 million damage. And Vortex only persists for 8 seconds. Okay, so I was doing 500,000 damage a second, roughly. Not bad. But yeah, really cool set, really strong. I think the Firelord set and the Destruction set are also really strong in their own right. But the Supreme Magister set and the Chaos set really ties together the union of fire and void with the Wizard, whereas the other sets are mainly focused just on the fire spells. So I was really happy to see this armor come together. I think it's incredibly strong, really cool, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. I can't wait to see what you guys can throw together as far as your damage outputs. But yeah, I'm really satisfied with the way the tier 3 armors all came together. I do wish that the Ranger armor looked different. Maybe they'll update it. I hope they update it so that it has its own unique look. But each class is so much different now than when they all started, over a year ago. The abilities are cool, the changes are awesome, and the damage is just absolutely bonkers. Some of the DPS you can get. I was really surprised when I saw some of the videos uploaded about rogue damage, ranger damage, and champion damage. It's crazy. It's really good. Hey gang, so I originally wasn't going to include this in this video, but now that I'm sitting down to edit it, I think it's important that we see who gives what fragments so you know what to farm. So I'm going to go down the list of armor fragments, and then I'll do the weapon fragments, and then I'll do the other weapon set fragments. So, the first armor fragment you're going to get is coming from Artoran Magister. Then you're going to get one from Cedric and Cecil. Then you're going to get another one from Zorak the Deathbringer. Then Voro right after him. Stravgar. Sligoth and Norgoth. The 5 champions. Igor. I'm missing one. And Zlindrog. Okay. Yeah. So that's all 9. Artoran, Cedric and Cecil, Zorak the Deathbringer, Voro, Stravgar, Sligoth and Norgoth, the 5 champions, Zlindrog, and Igor are the 9 armor fragments. And then the weapon set, I have it in my notes as weapon set A. This is the one-handed set. So you get the fragments for the one-handed set from Hatharax, the Avatar of Nu, and the Lich. And each one of them can drop a piece of the set itself. So Hatharax can drop your gloves, the Avatar of Nu can drop the offhand, and the Lich will drop the main hand weapon. And then for the tier 2, or sorry, not the tier 2, for the two-handed tier 3 set, you're going to get that from Draxian Pell, Zlindrog, and Praxidar the Great One. And with, same as the other set, you can get all the pieces. Draxian Pell drops the boots. Zlindrog drops the jewelry, as well as Rikton. Rikton doesn't drop an armor fragment, but Rikton also drops the jewelry piece. The necklace or the ring, whatever you need. And then Praxidar will drop the main weapon, the two-handed weapon. So there you go. Go kill them. Go get those fragments. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Know that you matter. See ya.